Welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I'm your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is an attorney, John Hopkins, with Hopkins & Carley, and they have offices in San Jose and in Palo Alto. He is a co-founder of the firm, and they started it back in about 1968. He's a shareholder of the firm, a member of the Family Wealth and Tax Planning Department. He was admitted to the State Bar of California in 1957, and he was a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of Stanford Law School, a member of the Order of the Coif, and also completed 4 years of graduate work in counseling psychology at Santa Clara University. I can say that members of the estate planning community in Silicon Valley regard John as a mentor. He has actively promoted community giving, has also spoken widely about succession planning for family businesses, and that's what we're going to be talking about, succession planning issues for family business. So John, welcome, and thank you for being my guest here today.
Thank you.
So folks, I'm thrilled to have him. John is a real fountain of wisdom. So as we get started, I have a little caution, and that is going to be evident in our conversation. This is a really complex area. I haven't backed away from complex areas before, but it means that we cannot cover everything in depth. We're going to be mostly focusing on issues and not on solutions. This interview is intended to be the basis of a further conversation with your advisors, and in some cases you might even need psychological counselors. And that's a big part of what John's message has been to our estate planning community here for years. So, John, let's get started with our questions. Okay. So how is a family business different from other businesses, and what complexity does that bring to succession planning for them?
Well, family businesses, is the name identifies as businesses that have family members, members of the same family working in them. And the typical business, which is not family owned, operates on what you call a capitalist system, in which you're going to make a profit and you're going to reward your stakeholders or shareholders or partners or whatever, and you're going to split the profits, and that's the name of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the people have no other blood relationships typically than the in that business. A family business is of course made up of family members, and every business has a system, which is what I identified as a capitalist system, and every family has a system. The business system, you get rewarded based on your contribution. In a family business, you tend to get rewarded upon where you fit in the family, no matter what your job title is.
Sort of like each according to their ability and two each according to their needs.
Exactly. It's a socialist system. You don't get rewarded for your contribution. You get rewarded for what you need. Well, those systems are diametrically opposed to each other, and it puts the family and the family members in conflict. Those that aren't doing too well would assert that this is a family and it should be run according to our needs. And the ones that are doing all the work said, no, we should be rewarded for what we're contributing. This usually doesn't happen in the first generation because that's mom and dad. Mm-hmm. And mom usually, she very often is in the business, but mm-hmm. It's after the kids are up and out of the house. But you have these two different systems. And if you go to a lawyer or accountant, we're going to be focused on the business system. Mm-hmm. And what's best for the business, and by that I mean what's best for making money and compensating people according to what they're contributing, and not putting somebody on the payroll when they got right out of college and don't know anything about anything, but they need a job. Mm-hmm. So
part of what we got here is this issue of fairness. And so what's fair to a family member has a different reference than for a typical employee.
It has a different meaning
Yeah.
in a family business than it does in a non-family business.
Okay.
So in order to advise a family business on how to plan for succession planning, you have to deal with the family system. And family systems are pretty complex. They're not, business systems are pretty transparent. If they're not, then you have other problems within that business that are, backbiting and people not doing their job and so forth. Typical business problems. But in the family systems, you have a completely different set of rules. And you have the chief executive officer, which is typically dad. Not always, but
could be Mary Kay Ash, right?
Yeah, well, we've had auto dealers here that have been women, and we have other businesses where the women, family business where the women are in charge, but the I lost my track here. In the family business, the rules are completely different. If you go to a regular business, it doesn't take you very long to figure out how decisions are made. Whether there's one autocrat that does it all, or there's a committee, or there's a board, and they actually control the business. And in a family business, it's very complex. Mom, whereas dad is the CEO, mom is usually also the CEO, but he's the chief executive officer and she's the chief emotional officer.
Oh, okay.
So if there's a problem, it goes to mom. And so decisions, you have to figure out now exactly how are decisions made in this system.
So it's like the family at home. It used to say, if dad says no, go ask mom. Go ask mom, and if mom says no, go ask grandma.
Yeah, well, that could be, but it typically is one person complains to the one that's closest to mom, and that person passes the message to mom. Mom tells dad tells mom goes back down the line, and God forbid that there be any direct face-to-face communication between dad and the child that's feeling they're getting not a fair treatment.
Okay. So let's go on to the next question, which sort of is going to continue in our theme anyway. And that's, why may the persons usually consulted about business succession plans be ill-equipped to properly help develop such a plan?
Well, other than most advisors, or say attorneys and accountants are the most logical ones. Sometimes financial planners now are getting into it, and actually larger companies get into it big time. But the lawyers and accountants who have been the backbone of smaller family businesses, advisors, it's like, if you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so the accountants get the books set up right and get the systems right and all of that. And the accountants come in and make sure the corporation or LLC is all set up properly, and whether they're having board meetings if they're a corporation, but we don't hang around and see that they're doing all the things we told them to do, which they rarely do. So they rarely have meetings and they rarely have minutes, and nobody knows where the minute book is because they haven't seen it in a couple of years. So there's no structure there that maintains itself. The family system of communication and the family attitudes are completely dominant in that context, typically. Not always, but that's typically what we find. And since we're not trained, well, except I went and got myself some training, in dealing with family systems, other than the one we grew up with, and which is never a good model for
business anyway.
No. So other than the one we grew up with, we tend to rely on what we know. And we know this, and so this is what you should do. It may not solve your problem, but it at least gives me something I can offer you to do, which looks like it's going to solve your problem. But problems are the communication systems, how decisions are made, and how people are rewarded, which are not. Some accountants take a more global interest, and there are many in your profession that do help a lot. They will counsel mom and dad or dad on compensation and point out, you're out of your mind if you're going to give your son a raise. They get to be part of the family is what happens. And we get pulled in. If we get that close to the family, then we're one of the family counselors. And we do tend to get out of our area of expertise and act like we know what we're doing, and that's dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
What I found, it's the whole thing of working with families anyway, it's a very difficult one because of the dynamics, of course, that are happening between children and parents, and things shifting with, parents declining health and all the other things. And it's just so easy to sort of somebody feels like you stepped out of line, and the next thing you know, you're out or whatever. And so, so it is a very sensitive thing.
Well, it is, because we become part of the system, and that feels good, the family.
Oh yeah, it's nice.
Oh
boy.
but if we get too identified with Dad, the first thing that happens when Dad dies, and Mom, widow, comes in, and sons and daughters may be there, and we started telling Mom what to do. I've had this happen. The next thing I know, even though I've represented the family for 10, 15 years, I'm out of the picture.
Yeah.
The son does not have the same
warm feelings.
He doesn't. No, in this particular case, the son didn't want to have any competition.
Oh, okay.
He wanted somebody that was his own guy.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
His own person.
So that's the kind of problems that arise.
Maybe for just a moment before I move on, you talk a little bit about conflicts of interest. And
oh yes,
that
that's
sort of
I left out. That's a huge issue for lawyers. A lawyer can only represent one person or one entity. In family businesses, we tend to end up representing everybody. Children come in for their estate plans, and as long as everybody is okay with that, it seems to work fine. But when conflicts arise, we as the historic family advisor is conflicted out immediately right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And we have to sit in the bleachers and watch.
Darn.
And so that is a problem, and it's one the profession has wrestled with for a long time. Mm-hmm. And people can waive the conflicts, but by the time you prepare a letter waiving the conflicts, it's about 15 pages long, and they need a lawyer just to tell them
what does it mean?
What they're signing. Yes.
Okay. Well, while we're in conflicts, maybe we can talk a little bit about just some of the conflicts that arise for family members relating to the business, sort of the insiders, the outsiders, what have you.